When his mom said I was using him to escape my past, I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because I knew something she didn't. Something that would flip the entire narrative upside down. It started at brunch. The kind of picture-perfect Sunday morning you only see on Instagram. Avocado toast, mimosas, and a table full of forced smiles. His mother, Pamela, designer sunglasses and pearl earrings, watched me like I was a stray cat who wandered into her perfectly trimmed backyard. "So, where exactly are you from again?" she asked, swirling her drink without looking at me. I opened my mouth to answer, but she cut me off before I could speak. "Oh, right. One of those small towns in Texas, wasn't it? I just can't keep track these days. Must have been such a rough upbringing." She smirked, and I swear she meant to sound casual, but her voice was a scalpel. My boyfriend Ethan shifted awkwardly beside me. He knew what she was doing. He just didn't know why. The truth? I did have a past. One I hadn't told him everything about yet. Not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't want it to define me. But Pamela? She had already decided who I was. To her, I was just some small-town girl chasing her son's Ivy League pedigree and Wall Street salary, like it was a golden ticket out of nowhere. "I mean, not to pry," she added, while prying with both hands, "but girls like you, well, they see a boy like Ethan, and it's like a lifeline, isn't it?" The audacity hit me like cold water. And Ethan? He looked like he wanted to crawl under the table, but I kept calm. "I didn't need a lifeline," I said quietly. "I needed someone who saw me for who I am. And that's what Ethan gave me." She laughed, a short, sharp laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, honey," she said, "love is cute, but in the real world, love doesn't erase the past. People don't change where they come from. They just try to outrun it." And that's when I realized something. She didn't fear me because I was hiding something. She feared me because she couldn't control me. She couldn't buy me off. She couldn't shame me. She couldn't figure out why someone like me would walk into her world with her head held high. And that terrified her. Because I wasn't a project. I was a problem she couldn't solve. Later that night, Ethan asked me if I was okay. I lied and said I was. He didn't push. He trusted me. And that trust meant more to me than anything. But the next morning, I got a call that changed everything. It was from my attorney. "She's digging," he said. "Pamela's been making calls, pulling your name through every database she can access." I sat there in silence, heart pounding. "And?" I asked. He paused. "She's gonna find something, but not what she thinks." That's when I knew. If she wanted to play this game, I'd let her. Because the truth was, she had no idea who I really was, or what was in my name. She thought I was hiding some scandal. She didn't know I was holding a legacy. When I was 16, everything in my world collapsed. My father was a respected corporate consultant. Sharp suit, sharper mind. Until the day he disappeared. One minute he was boarding a flight to Chicago. The next the plane was lost over Lake Michigan. No survivors. My mom spiraled. Bills piled up. I went from private school to public, from designer clothes to hand-me-downs. And just like that, people who used to wave at us in the grocery store couldn't remember our names. We were ghosts in our own town. But then 5 years later, after I'd clawed my way through community college, working 2 jobs, and teaching myself coding in between shifts, I got a letter from a law firm I'd never heard of. Inside was a single line. "You are the primary heir to the Wexler Trust." Wexler, my grandmother's maiden name. I barely knew her. She lived on the East Coast, and my father rarely talked about her. But apparently, she hadn't forgotten about me. The trust was massive. I'm talking 8 figures, stocks, property, assets I didn't even know how to pronounce. But the money came with conditions. Keep it quiet. Build something of my own. Don't let it define me. And I agreed. I didn't touch a penny for nearly a year. Instead, I launched a startup with the code I'd been building in silence. An AI tool that streamlines back-end systems for hospitals. And within months, we had a buyout offer from a firm in Palo Alto that made headlines. Just not with my name attached. Because I didn't want the noise. I didn't want the spotlight. I just wanted freedom. So while Pamela was digging for dirt, expecting to find skeletons in my closet, what she'd actually find was ownership papers. IP filings, anonymous shell companies that all traced back to one name, mine. She wasn't ready for that. And honestly, neither was Ethan, because I'd kept it from him too. Not because I didn't trust him. But because I wanted to know if he loved me. not the empire I was building in silence. So when Pamela finally cornered me at another family dinner, this time with her friends watching, sipping wine and whispering behind their hands, I saw the moment in her eyes. She thought she had me. "I hope you're not offended," she said, loudly enough for the table to hear. "But a woman with a complicated background should be up front. Before things get serious." Ethan blinked. "What's going on?" "She's hiding things, Ethan," Pamela said. "Her past, her name. She's not who you think she is." Everyone went silent. I set down my fork, looked her in the eye. "You're right," I said. "I do have a past, and I wasn't ready to share it. Not because I was ashamed." I pulled out a file from my bag and placed it on the table, but because it's bigger than anything you could have imagined. You could hear a pin drop when I slid that folder across the table. Pamela's eyes narrowed, but her hands didn't move. She didn't touch it, like the folder itself might bite her. So I opened it for her. The top page was a certified statement of ownership. My name, stamped in bold, right next to the Wexler Trust. Beneath that, documentation of my shares in 3 medical tech companies, 2 of which her husband had probably invested in without even realizing I was one of the board members. And at the bottom, a single-page summary of the silent buyout my startup had undergone without listing the company name, just the total payout figure, $14.8 million. Pamela's lips parted. Her fake composure cracked, just slightly, and the corners of her mouth twitched as if she didn't know whether to sneer or gasp. "I never needed Ethan," I said calmly, my voice carrying just enough to reach the ears of her snickering friends. "I chose him because he's the first person who ever saw me, not my resume or my past." "Is this real?" Ethan whispered, glancing between me and the papers. I turned to him, heart thudding. "It's all real," I said. "But I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to love me because of this. I needed to know you saw me first." His face was unreadable. I could tell his brain was scrambling to process it all. The money, the legacy, the years I'd spent hiding it. And Pamela? She was frozen, but her eyes darted back and forth like she was looking for an escape route. Her little narrative, that I was some desperate girl clinging to her son like a lifeboat, just exploded right in front of her. The next hour was uncomfortable. No one at that table knew what to say. Conversations turned to forced laughs and small talk, but the energy had shifted. You could feel it. Pamela barely spoke another word that night, and I knew, without her even saying it, that her power was gone. The next day, Ethan and I sat in the park, away from the noise. He hadn't asked questions yet, and I appreciated that, but I knew he needed answers. "I feel like I don't even know you," he finally said. "You know the parts that matter," I replied. "The rest, I didn't want it to get in the way." He was quiet, thoughtful. "So what now?" I looked at him. "Now, you decide. Because the truth is out. No more secrets." He looked at the ground for a moment, then back up at me. "I didn't fall in love with an heiress," he said. "I fell in love with the girl who made me soup when I was sick, who fixed my laptop when it crashed during finals, who stayed up listening to me rant about my job even when she was exhausted." He reached for my hand. "And if you built all that and still stayed you, then that's even more reason to love you. Relief. Flooding. Overwhelming relief. But that wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. Because what I didn't know was that Pamela had one last move. A week later, I got an email from the board of one of the companies I'd invested in. A strange inquiry. Apparently, a woman had reached out anonymously, claiming I'd obtained insider information illegally, that I'd used family connections to manipulate my way into investment power. I didn't need to guess who it was. I had receipts, and I had lawyers. Within 48 hours, my legal team issued a formal cease and desist, accompanied by a carefully worded letter addressed to Pamela Miller. No threats, no accusations, just facts. Her signature on 3 different background check requests, her digital footprint connecting her to a fake Gmail address, and most importantly, a signed NDA from a former PI she'd hired to look into me. She thought I'd roll over. She thought I'd panic. Instead, I filed for a restraining order. That was the moment things really hit the fan. Ethan's phone lit up with messages from his mom. Voicemails full of half apologies, half threats. How could she do this to me? She's destroying this family. She doesn't belong with us. But Ethan, he'd seen enough. He didn't say much. He just drove to her house, alone, and didn't come back for hours. When he did, his face was pale, but resolute. "She's cut off," he said. "I told her she's not welcome in our lives unless she gets help. That kind of obsession, it's toxic." I wanted to cry, not because I was sad, but because for the first time, someone had chosen me over the people who were supposed to love them unconditionally. Weeks passed. Things settled. Pamela didn't try to contact us again, but just when I thought the dust had cleared, a letter arrived. Handwritten, no return address. Inside was a photo of me and a girl. I stared at the photo for a full minute before I could even blink. It was old, creased at the corners, the color slightly faded, but the two girls in it were unmistakable. One of them was me, maybe 10 years old, hair in a tight ponytail, skinny, smiling nervously. The other? Her name was Crystal, a girl I hadn't seen in over 15 years. We were in front of a trailer, my childhood home. Not the tidy little house people imagine when they hear small-town Texas, but a rusted-out double-wide with a broken porch swing and the remnants of a busted tricycle out front. On the back of the photo, in shaky handwriting, were just 2 words. "Still running?" My hands started to tremble. I hadn't thought about Crystal in years. She'd been my best friend. The only friend I had when things were at their worst. When my mom was still drinking. When the fridge was empty more often than full. And when school was more like a battlefield than a place to learn. We were inseparable. Until one day, she was just gone. No warning. No goodbye. Her trailer was abandoned overnight. People whispered all kinds of things. Drugs, custody battles, jail time. But no one knew for sure. I asked my mom once. She looked at me and said, "Don't go poking around where you don't belong." And that was the end of it. Until now. I flipped the photo over again. That handwriting. It wasn't Pamela's. It was too raw. Too messy. This wasn't part of her campaign to destroy me. This was something else. A ghost from my past. One I hadn't expected. I showed the photo to Ethan. "Do you think it's a threat?" he asked, studying the back of it. "I don't know," I admitted. "But someone went out of their way to find this. Someone who knows where I came from." "Do you think it's Crystal?" I shook my head. "I don't even know if she's alive." He looked at me, serious. "Then we find out." I didn't want to go back. Not to that place. Not to the town that watched my family fall apart and did nothing. But I had to. Because if there was something still lingering in that past, I wasn't going to let it poison my future. We drove down in silence. Hours of highway and memories I'd tried to bury. As we passed the old exit sign, blistered and sun-faded, I felt something inside me flinch. My hometown hadn't changed much. Same dusty roads, same half-empty strip mall. The gas station still had that flickering sign, and the grocery store had the same crooked carts I used to drag home because we couldn't afford bus fare. We found the old neighborhood. My trailer was gone, demolished, replaced by a gravel lot and a rusty mailbox with no name. But the lot next door, still had the same green and white camper Crystal had lived in. I walked up slowly, heart pounding. Knocked once, no answer. I was about to leave when I heard it. "Thought you'd never come back." I turned. She was standing behind the screen door, older, rougher, but still Crystal. We stared at each other for a long moment, and then slowly, she opened the door. "I sent the photo," she said before I could ask. "Didn't think you'd actually show." I stepped inside. Everything smelled like old wood and air freshener. Ethan stayed in the car. He understood I needed to do this alone. "Why now?" I asked. Crystal lit a cigarette. Didn't offer me one. Just took a drag and blew smoke toward the window. "I saw your name. In a business article. Recognized it immediately. Wexler. I remembered your grandma used to send you letters. You'd never let me read 'em. That was a long time ago. Doesn't mean I forgot." There was something in her tone. Sharp. Wounded. I didn't know whether she was angry or just lost. "I didn't know what happened to you," I said gently. "You just vanished." "My mom OD'd," she said flatly. "State took me. Group home, then juvie. You got out. I didn't." That hit harder than I expected. "I didn't run," I whispered. "I survived." She laughed, bitter and hollow. "Surviving's just running with better shoes." We sat there in silence for a while. Then she pulled something from under the table. Another folder. "This ain't about revenge," she said. "It's a warning." I opened the folder. Inside were printed emails. Correspondence between someone named Jay Ellison and a private investigator. In the messages, they referenced assets, mine, including mentions of offshore accounts, the Wexler Trust, and attempts to restructure inheritance claims. My throat went dry. "They're trying to contest your trust," Crystal said. "Somebody's digging real deep, using stuff from our childhood. Stuff only people from here would know." "Who is Jay Ellison?" I asked. Crystal shrugged. "No clue, but they're serious, and they're rich. Whoever they are, they want what you've got, and they're not playing fair." My mind raced. Pamela wouldn't do this under an alias. This felt bigger, deeper, older. "Why help me?" I asked. Crystal finally looked me in the eye. "Because you were the only person who ever saw me. Not the trailer, not the mess, just me." I didn't know what to say. "Just don't pretend your past is dead," she said. "It's not. It's waiting. And sometimes it sends letters." I thanked her, left with the folder, my head spinning. Ethan and I drove back in silence again, but it wasn't peaceful this time. It was the quiet before a storm. Because whoever Jay Ellison was, they were trying to rewrite my life. And they had access to things no one should have known. I didn't sleep the night we got back. I stayed up combing through every document Crystal had given me, rereading every line, every word. The emails were vague but sinister. Like whoever this Jay Ellison was, they were smart enough to never say anything outright, but knew exactly how to threaten without seeming like it. One message chilled me to my core. The subject is not entitled to full trustee control due to unresolved juvenile records. Leverage available. Strategy pending confirmation of related parties. Silence. Related parties? That could only mean people from my past. I dug into my storage unit, into the plastic container buried at the bottom labeled, "Not yet." Inside were old letters from my grandma, one school photo, and a folder with every sealed juvenile record I'd worked to expunge. But as I flipped through the manila envelope, something felt off. One of the seals was broken. I called my lawyer. He confirmed what I was afraid of. A court clerk had accessed my sealed records 2 months ago, illegally. And guess who had paid the consulting fee? Jay Ellison. But the name didn't show up in our systems. Not as a legal entity, not a foundation, nothing public. Then Ethan had an idea. "Ellison, it's your mom's maiden name, right?" My blood ran cold. Number it couldn't be. My mother had been gone for years. Last I heard, she was homeless, drifting between shelters and rehab centers. She'd abandoned me when I was 13 during the worst year of my life. I'd left that part of myself buried so deep I didn't even think of it anymore. There she was, hiding behind a fake email and a fake identity. Not Pamela, my own mother. She'd seen me on the cover of a Forbes online feature 6 months ago. I remembered the article. It was short, just a profile on how I'd built my startup after dropping out of college. It hadn't even crossed my mind that she might read it, but she had, and she decided that now, after years of silence, after walking away from everything, was the time to resurface, and not to reconcile the number to take. She knew about the trust. She must have found out through some old paperwork. Maybe something she took from my grandma's house. The kind of thing that should have been burned but ended up in her purse when she disappeared. She was trying to have me declared mentally unfit to manage my assets, based on old juvenile records, fights, school suspensions, therapy visits. The same wounds I'd spent years trying to heal. This wasn't about money. It was about power, control. So I did what I always did. I fought back. My lawyers filed for an emergency hearing. We presented the emails, the PI connection, the unauthorized access of sealed court files. My legal team was ready to go nuclear. And when the day came, she showed up. I hadn't seen her in over a decade. She looked older, obviously, but not as broken as I remembered. She wore a pantsuit. Her hair was dyed. She looked like a woman playing a role. And when she took the stand, she cried. She told the judge she wanted what was best for me, that she believed I was being manipulated by people with bad intentions, that she was trying to protect the legacy her family had built. It was all lies, but good lies. She even had a printed photo of me and Crystal as kids, trying to make the argument that my trauma had made me unstable, and that a full review of my mental capacity was warranted before I continued to control generational wealth. I wanted to scream, but I didn't have to, because Ethan stood up. He asked to speak, and the judge, surprisingly, allowed it. He spoke simply, from the heart. He told the court who I really was, that I built my company from scratch, that I worked harder than anyone he knew, that I was generous, methodical, and entirely competent. She's the strongest person I've ever met, he said. She doesn't need anyone to protect her from her past, especially not someone who abandoned her to it. That line, it broke something in the room. Even the judge paused. The motion was denied, the case thrown out. And as for my mother, she was escorted out of the courtroom, muttering curses under her breath. I haven't seen her since, but I know she'll try again. People like her, they don't stop. They circle, wait, look for cracks. But I'm not who I was at 13. I'm not some scared kid praying someone will come save me. I am the legacy now, and I protect what's mine. Pamela never spoke about the incident, not once, but I know she knows the truth now, that I wasn't using her son to escape my past. I survived my past, and I built something despite it. And Ethan, he's still by my side. Because love isn't about money, or legacy, or who has the upper hand. It's about truth. And mine was never something anyone saw coming.